There we go.
Thank you. Okay, Parshat Bishalach, page 366. Vayihi Bishalach Paro. Who'd like to lead off for us? Be'ivrit. מירי?
שלח פרעה את העם ולא נחם אלוהים דרך ארץ פלישתים כי קרוב הוא כי אמר אלוהים פן ינחם העם בראותה מלחמה ושבו מצרימה.
One more.
ויצא אלוהים את העם דרך המדבר ים סוף ו50 עלו בני ישראל מארץ מצרים.
Beautiful. In English, please, the first two psukim. Linda, you have it?
It happened when Pharaoh sent out the people that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines because it was near the Godstead. Perhaps the people will reconsider when they see a war and they will return to Egypt. So God turned the people toward the way of the wilderness to the Sea of Reeds. The children of Israel were armed when they went up from Egypt.
Okay, let's pause there. The Gemara says that whenever we have the word Vayihi, Eino Ela Lashon Tsa'ar. It's a term that connotes sadness, anguish. Eino Ela Lashon Tsa'ar. Vayihi Bishalach et Paro. There's tsa'ar. This should be a time of absolute jubilation. J-U-bilation and J-E-W-bilation. Right? This is it. This is incredible. Now, a similar question can be asked that, the main part of this parsha is the Az Yashir, is the song that Moshe led the men, Miriam led the women, after Kriyat Yamsuf, after the splitting of the sea. Why did we only sing at that point? You'd think that we would erupt into song when we left Egypt. Right now. This should be the time of an eruption into song. Right? I would imagine we leave Egypt, Az Yashir Moshe, Uvnei Yisroel, and then Moshe and the children of Israel sang. Why did we not sing when we left Egypt? Why did we only sing when we crossed the Yam? And similarly, Vayihi is a lashon of tsar, of anguish. What is the anguish at this point? Why is there anguish? Why aren't we singing?
When going on the Chorva, it's still either they go back or the Mitzrayim is chasing them and it won't happen. But once this miracle of splitting the sea happened, that's the real thing. That this is, you go towards freedom.
Okay. So Yafi is saying, I believe correctly, that as long as the Mitzrim were still around, evidenced by the fact that they came chasing after us. I mean, when you read about slaves in the United States, back in the time of slavery, right? When a slave escaped, that was just the start of their trek. Right? And when we left Egypt, we were not yet rid of the Egyptians. Again, evidenced by the fact they came chasing after us, looking to bring us back. It was only after the Kriyat Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, our passing through, and the Mitzrim, incredibly going into the midst of this sea, and then the sea crashing down upon them, and even that wasn't enough. We had to see them washing up on our shore. Otherwise, we would be afraid that the same way we came out of this side, they came out on the other side, and there's another day ahead when they're going to come back against us again. So it was only at that point that we were completely rid of them, we were completely free, and that is the point that we said our Shira. Good. Good. Yafi. That is an excellent answer to the second question. But why did it need to be broken into two stages, right? Our holiday of Shavuot is a one-day holiday, right? In Chutz La'aretz, outside Israel, we keep 2 days. But essentially, it's a one-day holiday. What is that one-day holiday? The time of Matan Torah. Sukkot is a 7-day holiday, which has 1 day of Yom Tov in the beginning, and that's it. And then 6 days of Chol HaMoed. We have another holiday at the end called Shmini Atzeret. But no other holiday is like Pesach, where the first day is Chag and the 7th day is Chag. Shavuot is 1 day period. Sukkot is 1 day, then Chol HaMoed, period. Shmini Atzeret is 1 day period. Pesach is the only time where we have 1 day, Chol HaMoed, 7th day. It has these two bookends of Chag in that same holiday. Chag meaning Yom Tov, right, as opposed to the intermediary Chol HaMoed days. Because in fact it was a 2-stage deliverance. It was a 2-stage exodus. There was the exodus there was leaving Egypt, and then that's the first day of Pesach, and then the 7th day of Pesach is the day of Kriyat Yamsuf. And it was only with both of those together that we reached the completion of this Yitziat Mitzrayim, and that is our holiday, and that is our exodus, and that is the Shira that was said. But why? Why did it need to be broken up into these 2 stages?
To make the physical freedom and the spiritual.
Okay, yes, but not fully, because in fact, there are those that view it that the 7 days of Pesach are the first holiday. We have many days of Chol HaMoed, intermediary days, and then Shavuot is the last day. So they view it again as bookends, starting with Pesach 7 days, all the intermediary days that we count the Omer, and then Shavuot is the end. And the way it's understood in that context is Pesach is the physical Yitziat Mitzrayim, the physical Exodus, and Shavuot, Matan Torah, is the spiritual Exodus, when we reached that pinnacle. So why is it that within Pesach we need to have these 2 stages? And again, as we began, what is Vayihi? And it was B'Shalach Paro, but the Gemara says Vayihi is Vayhai, right? Translated as whoa, ho, right? Vayhai is Eino Ela Lashon Tsa'ar. It's a term of Tsa'ar. Yes, Mary?
But like there's Vayehi Boker, Vayehi Erev, is that also Tzar?
So the Gemara actually works through all of those examples. The Gemara Megillah works through, right? And the Gemara's conclusion is that there are some that are, some that aren't, right? Vayihi bimei, the Gemara's conclusion, that's always Lashon Tsar. But Vayihi, right, can go either way, right? But Vayihi essentially is this Lashon of Tsar. What would the Tsar be over here? Vayihi b'shalach paro et ha'am. Dov.
The Torah said that the people went with setting apart. It was that was the main thing. Had to be sent from Para, and there was some people that went without.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Vayihi b'shalach paro seems a very strange way to start this parsha. Right? After Paro has been reduced and smattered about and just completely demolished along with his country, if you were writing this pasuk, how would you write it? And it was when Paro sent the nation? Or would it be, and it was when
God took out his people.
God took out the children of Israel? Right? It's a strange way to start. And it was when Paro sent the nation? Really? That's how we're understanding this? It's Paro who sent us out? It's not God who took us out? It's not Moshe who led us out?
It's our acknowledgement that God is the one, and
Yeah, so why give Paro the headline over here?
because finally, after all this,
But he didn't. He chases us again. He chases us again. He didn't acknowledge it.
Maybe he was emphasizing his ignorance that caused all this.
Okay, perhaps it's his ignorance. I want to look at it more from the vantage point of the children of Israel. Yes, Linda.
Well, in the same way that Paro did not really accept, in other words, he chased after us, I'm wondering if the children of Israel did not really recognize that God would continue to
Okay.
take care of them.
Okay.
Good idea.
Good. That's what I hear over here. Vayihi b'shalach paro et ha'am. You know, it's very interesting. The Torah, I think Nechama Leibovich takes this approach often, that there are different names that people have. And the Torah will use the different names to describe the way that person is being viewed. Right? You know, classic example, I think she brings this one. Classic example is when Eliezer is going to find a wife for Yitzchak, and he's being treated royally. So he's referred to as Ha'ish, the man. And then he says, hey, I'm Eved. I am the Eved, I'm the servant of Abraham. Right? He was being viewed as the Ish. And the Torah, if it's telling us, right, granted as Hashem who took us out, but how is this event being viewed by the children of Israel? B'shalach paro et ha'am. It's being viewed that Paro sent out the nation, which then we understand what follows. God did not lead them by the way of the Plishtim because it was too nearby. God said, lest they'll see war. And what will they do? They'll go back to Mitzrayim. That is the Vayihi over here. That is the Tsar over here. That's the anguish. That's the sadness over here. What's the sadness? B'shalach paro et ha'am. That the children viewed it that Paro had sent the nation. So it's really almost still in Paro's hands. It's up to Paro. And if there will be milchama, if things will get a little bit rough, we might even say, let's go back. Let's go back. That is the B'shalach Paro. That's the Vayihi. Now, let's go a step further with this. What? Just one second. What would we say is that midah, that attribute of the Mitzrim? What was their rotting midah? What was their view? What was their outlook, which had to be destroyed? Which we discussed before, why there needed to be 10 makot instead of God just immobilizing them, doing choshech right away, and our waltzing out. What was the essence of this Egyptian view of the world? Or what were they about? What was their intransigence?
Death.
Sorry?
Death. Everything was around death with them.
I don't.
Everything.
Okay, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I see how I see that, Dov.
Everything was for the afterworld, everything. Death.
Their way of life is the only way of life, and anyone who disturbs their way of life needs to be destroyed.
Well, they were in power. They had to be knocked off their pedestal a little, so every makah was,
The makah was meant to do what to them? Ad matai me'anta le'anot mipanai is what God says through Moshe at the end. Until when will you refuse to acknowledge, to recognize, humble yourselves before me? Until when will you recognize that I am the one who is running this world? That I am in control. What do we say in the Haggadah? Ani hu, velo acher. That was the makot were there to show. We mentioned last time, I'm Hashem in the midst of the land, there's none like me. This is my world. This is my world. You'll do all the things that you do, but ultimately, this is my world. When will you finally recognize that this is my world? Le'anot, to humble yourselves before me. You don't call the shots. We make our efforts, but God runs this world. That was Labriut. That was the Egypt that we took with us. We asked before, why was there this need for a double stage of this redemption, for the Yitziat Mitzrayim and then the Kriyat Yam Suf? We had not yet rid ourselves of that influence of this Egyptian look on life, this Egyptian understanding. So we had left Egypt. But what was our view? Our view was still B'shalach Paro et ha'am. Right? We mentioned last time in the Arizal, Paro is the same letters as Ha'oref. What is the Oref? The back of the neck, right? Turning aside, not willing to accept God and God's involvement, rule in this world. Vayhi, it was tragic. B'shalach Paro et ha'am. Paro sent the people, and and God couldn't bring us around. So what did we still need? We still needed this last step to show that, to rid ourselves of the Paro. Right? It was interesting. Uzi said yesterday, Yitziat Mitzrayim. Right? Define the words Yitziat Mitzrayim. Exodus, Mitzrayim,
Misery.
from Egypt. That's how we translate it. But it's not Yitziat mi Mitzrayim. Yitziat Mitzrayim almost seems to be saying, right, Egypt leaving. Right? Yitziat Mitzrayim is Egypt leaving. Right? Was it Egypt leaving or was we who were leaving? But there are those that say it was the Egypt, the Yitziat Mitzrayim from inside us. We had to vomit out that Mitzrayim that we had inculcated, that had become to a certain degree a part of us. This understanding that we need to humble ourselves before God. And it's God's world, and all that you see has no reality, has no power to it. That's what the point that we needed to get to. So what happens then? So we start traveling. Does I have a question for that I was ignoring? Mary, do you have a question for or no?
No, I was just thinking that the Makot was as much for the Israelites as for the Egyptians.
Yes. 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 And that's why we always speak about Zecher L'Yitziat Mitzrayim. Right? The Kiddush, so many of the mitzvahs we do are Zecher L'Yitziat Mitzrayim. Right? It wasn't just simply the Exodus. It was the whole process and that which we learned from it. Yes, 100%. Yes, Linda.
We also had a slave mentality. That is, that everything was done, decisions were made without us. And so now we're being expected to make decisions and do things. That's a very quick change.
Yes, okay. So Linda, you want to say that we needed a transitional period to a degree. I hear that. Let us go now to the point of the... Sorry?
No, I was thinking there's a dramatic change in Midah, right? From the Egyptian point of view and from the Hebrews, Israelites' point of view. And if it's so deeply ingrained, then it has to be almost catastrophic to get rid of it.
Yeah.
We're not talking a little Midah. Everyone is important. But this was the deepest you can go.
Right.
For both of them.
Right.
And so it had to be really catastrophic.
Yeah, which we're going to see right now.
For us, if we also have...
When we say catastrophic, it means there need to be a catastrophic event in order to eradicate this.
Yeah, and it applies to us too. All this applies that when certain things are so ingrained in us and stiff and buried so hard, so far down that we can't even see it or understand it, then something has to come and disrupt, rupture, to expose it.
I hear that.
That's all I'm saying.
I hear that. Let's see now. Let's go to page 368, 369. Okay? Let's go on chapter 14. Let's go in English so we can cover a little more ground. So want to take that for us?
Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and let them turn back and encamp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, before Baal-Zephon. You shall encamp opposite by the sea."
Interesting. So whereas God was afraid that we'd see war and we'd turn back, right? Now what's happening? God is telling Moshe to tell them, turn back. Start to travel back towards Egypt. Right? Paro will say of the children of Israel, continue.
Paro will say of the children of Israel, "They are imprisoned in the land. The wilderness has locked them in. I shall strengthen the heart of Paro, and he will pursue them. And I will be glorified through Paro and his entire army. And Egypt will know that I am Hashem." And so they did.
Good. Someone else pick up verse 5. It was told.
It was told to the king of Egypt that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants became transformed regarding the people. And he said, "What is this that we have done, that we have sent away Israel from serving us?"
Continue.
He harnessed his chariot and attracted his people with him.
Right? It's an interesting translation. Right? Et amo lakat, literally, and his nation he took with him, meaning he led them. Good. He led them. He took
his 600 elite chariots and all the chariots of Egypt with officers on them all. Hashem strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the children of Israel. And the children of Israel were going out with an upraised arm.
So now God is bringing about this catastrophic event, right? This encounter where we've got to face that which we are afraid of and see it for what it truly is. Egypt pursued them. Continue, please, someone else.
Egypt pursued them and overtook them, encamped by the sea, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, and his horsemen and army by Pi-hakarot before Baal-Zephon. Pharaoh approached, the children of Israel raised their eyes, and behold, Egypt was journeying after them, and they were very frightened. The children of Israel cried out to Hashem. They said to Moses, "Were there no graves in Egypt that you took us to die in the wilderness? What is this that you have done to us to take us out of Egypt? Is this not the statement that we made to you in Egypt, saying, 'Let us be, and we will serve Egypt'? For it is better that we should serve Egypt than that we should die in the wilderness."
Good. Now there are different groups over here who are responding, right? They were very frightened in verse 10. And the children of Israel cried out to Hashem. That's one group. That was one reaction. What were other reactions? There were those that complained to Moshe, were there no graves in Egypt because die in the wilderness? What have you done to take us out of Egypt? Right? We said this, let us serve Egypt. It's better we serve Egypt than we should die in the wilderness. Okay, so here we have people are reacting in a very different manners over here. Moses, verse 13, someone take that. Moses said to the people,
Moses said to the people, "Do not fear, stand fast and see the salvation of Hashem, that he will perform for you today. For as you have seen Egypt today, you shall not see them ever again. Hashem shall make war for you, and you shall remain silent."
Okay. What are the options over here? What are the options that we're faced with here?
Well, we can run like crazy.
We could run like crazy, try to run away, even though we're sort of sandwiched between the Egyptians, right?
Yeah.
Right? What are other options?
Go back. Go back.
Go back and surrender?
Yeah.
Okay, that's one possibility.
And the other one.
Do whatever you can.
Trust Hashem.
Right? Well, go back and fight,
Trust Hashem.
right?
Or die.
Pray,
Pray or die.
right?
That's what they say.
Or die, right? Surrender, fight, pray,
Flee.
Who died?
die. I don't know if flee is really an option. Where are we fleeing to?
Divide and scatter, and then the chariots, the Egyptians may not know which way.
Perhaps off to the sides if we weren't, trapped in, perhaps, right? These are all the options. Then Hashem says a strange thing to Moshe. Hashem said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me?" Right? Right? You would think that's right. Kol Yaakov. That is our koach. Right? We connect to God. We cry out to God. Speak to the children of Israel and let them journey forth. And you lift up your staff, stretch out your arm over the sea and split it. And the children of Israel come into the midst of the sea on dry land. And I, behold, I shall strengthen the heart of Egypt. They will come after them. And I will be glorified through Pharaoh, through his entire army, through his chariots, through his horsemen. Egypt will know that I am Hashem when I am glorified through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. We're faced with a predicament. What do we do? A, B, C, or D? What does God say? E. There's a different path. What's that path?
I'll say
Journey forth. Journey forth. Yes, I'll save you, but
You have to take the first
journey forth. Right? You take the first step. Step into where?
Water.
Into the water.
Ooh.
Into the sea. Right? And you will then realize that
I am Hashem.
I am Hashem. I am in absolute control. When there is a situation where you don't see any way out, it could be. You don't see any way out. But that does not mean that there is no way out.
Yes.
Now, the only way that a person can walk or jump into this sea is if one understands that water, dry land, to God, it's all the same. Now, don't try this at home.
The beach.
But to understand, there's a famous story, during the Holocaust, the Brisker Rav. There's a teaching from Rav Chaim of Volozhin. That Rav Chaim from Volozhin was the Talmud of the Vilna Gaon. That a person, when they are in a difficult situation, they need to concentrate on Ein Od Milvado. There is a pasuk that says, there is nothing else besides God. Ein Od. There is nothing else besides Him. Ein Od Milvado. And the Brisker Rav, who managed to navigate his way out of the clutches of the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, he relates, or his children relate, that they were moving amongst all these Nazis all around, and here is a Jew. I mean, we're not talking about an Aryan-looking fellow. We're talking about a Jew in full Jewish garb, in full Jewish hair. I mean, full, clearly identifiable Jew. And they are just passing by all these Nazis, and he is concentrating. Ein Od Milvado, Ein Od Milvado, Ein Od Milvado, Ein Od Milvado. There is none beside him. There is none beside him. And he lost his concentration for a few moments. And a group of Nazi officers started to approach them. And he regained his focus, and they passed by, and he continued on. Do we always get to see this? We certainly don't. We certainly don't. And for all those that were saved, how many weren't? I'm not saying that this is this magical formula, but it is emes. It is true. Ein Od Milvado. Will God always decide that there will be a Yeshua, a redemption, a saving for us the way we hope? No. No. I've got the exact quote. It's a fantastic quote I saw recently. Faith is not the belief that things will go the way we want it. Faith is the belief that God will make things go the way He wants it. So it was better the way I saw it. But that's the idea. Faith is Ein Od Milvado. Faith is that God is in control. What did we still need in this two-stage exodus? What we needed was this clear, as you put it, catastrophic event that just shows Ein Od Milvado. Now is not the time to cry out. Journey forth, go in. And what happens? And Bnei Yisroel went into We went in the midst of the sea, bayabasha. And then that became the Yabasha. That swirling sea became the Yabasha, became the dry land.
That would seem to indicate though that Hashem didn't think that the plagues were that effective for Bnei Yisrael.
It wasn't fully, it was a process that was not fully complete.
Right.
That's correct. That is correct.
The fact that this was such a contrast seems to say that Hashem seemed to have this design that it was not.
I don't know if it was the design or if it was not, we were not there yet.
We weren't ready.
We were not there yet.
Well, that's what we've been discussing, but that it was so dramatic seems to say that the plagues didn't add that much in the beginning.
I don't know how to quantify that, right? But we were not there yet. We were not there yet. And we still needed this, right? And the Egyptian pursued them afterwards into the midst of the sea, and then stretch out. Let's go to 375, page 375, verse 26. Right, verse 26, someone take that, Eileen?
Sure. Hashem said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, and the water will go back upon Egypt, upon its chariots and upon its horsemen. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and toward morning the water went back to its power as the Egyptians were fleeing toward it. And Hashem churned Egypt in the midst of the sea. The water came back and covered the chariots and the horsemen of the entire army of Pharaoh, who were coming behind them in the sea. There remained not a one of them. The children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea. The water was a wall for them, on their right and on their left.
On that day?
On that day, Hashem saved Israel from the hand of Egypt, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great hand that Hashem inflicted upon Egypt, and the people revered Hashem, and they had faith in Hashem and in Moses, his servant.
Okay. At this point, when we see the Egyptians are finished, at this point, right, we were saved. On that day, Hashem saved Israel from the hand of Egypt. That was the time of the Yeshua, Vayosha, when we were truly saved. We were rid of them, and we had this clarity, this absolute clarity. Actually, there's a famous line. It's all famous, but in the Az Yashir we say Zeh Keli Va'anvehu, and this is my God, and I will. Let's see how they coming up in the Az Yashir. Right? How do they translate it? This is Zeh Keli Va'anvehu. This is my God. Okay, so they take the Rashi. I'll build him. This is my God. Zeh Keli. Let's start with that. We say in the Az Yashir, right? Meaning that they were able to just see clearly. Zeh is something that you point at. Zeh Keli. This is my God. Va'anvehu. Right? Anvehu could be a lashon, a term of nevei, which is an abode. I'll build a Beit HaMikdash. This is my God. Naveu, hitting the elephant up in mitzvos. Let me beautify myself. There was this absolute clarity of this reality. And then we have Az Yashir. That is when we erupt in song. Now it's so interesting. The idea of song what is it about music that moves us, but that's being far too vague. Right? Music, here we erupted in song. When in a state of mourning, we visit a house of mourning, what are we supposed to be? What's the mitzvah then? Silent. Right? Song is almost like an eruption of the feelings inside that just come out. But song has a whole structure to it. It has this whole composition of different parts that come together. Yeah?
No, I was just going to say that it's the only art form that actually is coordinated with our body. The heartbeat.
Interesting.
A heartbeat, right? You feel the heartbeat, you feel happy, the heartbeat's a little faster. You feel sad, the heartbeat's a little slower. And music has a beat to it. It's like inner music.
Inner music.
Inner
Beautiful.
music, yeah.
Beautiful. And it's like a symphony. It's all the parts coming together to create something that is one, that is whole. That is the realization that they came to. Their understanding that they reached is best represented by song. And understanding that all the components, all the parts, all that went on is all this tapestry that is woven together and is a tapestry of Ratzon Hashem, of God's will, of God's control, of God in this world. Song is all the strands being woven together into this one beautiful unit, this masterpiece. That's the Az Yashir. Now, after Moshe leads all the men, then what happens on page 380, verse 20? Someone take that for us? Chai, you want to take that? Miriam?
Maybe someone else.
Oh, okay. Someone with reading glasses.
Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took her drum in her hand, and all the women went forth after her with drums and with dances. Miriam spoke up to them, "Sing to Hashem, for he is exalted above the arrogant, having hurled horse with its rider into the sea."
Okay. So, Moshe leads the men, Miriam leads the women. And what is the song that she leads them in? Shiru LaHashem, Ki Ga'o Ga'a, Sus V'rochvo, Rama Vayam. Okay? Now, that is, right, the first line of the Az Yashir. Sing to Hashem, for he is exalted above the arrogant, having hurled horse with its rider into the sea. We seem to be making a big deal out of the sus v'rochvo. Right? In other words, as opposed to throwing the rider off the horse, God hurled the horse and the rider into the sea. It seems a little bit strange. That's the big deal? The big deal is the horse and the rider. This, if we want to encapsulate the Az Yashir, we want to encapsulate the Geula, the redemption, this is it? Sing to our God, for he is exalted above the arrogant, having hurled horse with its rider into the sea? Right? That's as opposed to the horse without its rider. Like, what is the emphasis here? What is being stressed over here?
So, it could be that just the rider could be viewed as more of a natural thing, because a wave would knock like someone off a surfboard. So the Mitzri without the horse, just being knocked off the horse, that's maybe someone could say that's Hashem through natural processes. But the horse over
Okay,
and with
I hear
the rider
that.
all as a unit and the rider not falling off, that's just
Okay.
more of
Okay,
a
nice
miraculous.
thought. Linda?
I'm wondering if you just get thrown in, you would have more opportunity to struggle out. But with the horse kicking and whatever, there's no way.
Okay.
It's like a complete destruction, a
A complete destruction?
Complete, the animals, the people, everything.
Okay. Okay.
Well, horses even much more powerful than men. So seeing horses here and rather than the rider, it's just emphasize how the mighty God
The
is,
power.
The power.
Okay. Okay. Dove?
There's something going on with the relationship of the horse and the rider that is suspect here.
Okay. Okay. The horse and the rider. I'm riding the horse. I guide that horse. I bring it to where I want to bring it. Throwing me off the horse represents my control, my losing control. I no longer have my free will. So the way to stop me is by taking me off my horse. You don't allow me to utilize my free will. Sus v'rochvo means stay on the horse. Make your choices. Do what you want to do, but I am in control of the horse and the rider. Meaning, I don't need to take away your free will in order to accomplish what I want to accomplish. You will utilize your free will. You could utilize your free will, but I will make sure that whatever you do is going to be utilized, is going to fit into my plan, my master plan. Right? We mentioned this before. Right? Classic examples that the Stipler, I believe in Birchos Peretz, brings. Classic examples. We mentioned before. Paro wanted to destroy the Redeemer of Israel. So what does he legislate? What does he decree? Throw him into the sea, into the river. What happens? Moshe's thrown into the river. What happens? The daughter Paro takes him into his palace. So Paro wanted to destroy that. He's on it, right? He wasn't taken off of his horse. Make your decree. Do what you want. But that will be utilized for my master plan. And you, Paro, will house, educate, feed, clothe this Moshiach Shel Yisroel. Everything that you're doing to prevent it from happening, go ahead. Have fun. I'm going to utilize whatever you do to bring about my end. Right? Other classic example he brings, Yosef and the brothers. Right? What will we bow down to him? Let's see what will be of his dreams. Let's sell him as a slave. And yes, by selling him as a slave down to Egypt, that very act is what brought about the very thing you were trying to prevent. You're bowing down to him. Right? Nira divrei mi yakum. Let's see who's going to win. So really, this whole idea of Mitzrayim, we mentioned before that we were not yet there. It was a staged process. And we had still absorbed that Mitzrayim in us about this not bowing before, this understanding that it's God's world. What fully represents this concept of it's God's world? We make our decisions, we do all the things that we do. But that's not going to change. That's all going to be incorporated into the master plan. What illustrates that? Sus v'rochvo Rama vayam. He doesn't throw the rider off the horse. Ride your horse. Guide your horse. Go where you want to go. Rama vayam. But that's going to end up exactly where Hashem wants that to end up. It is this first sentence of Az Yashir that Moshe began the Az Yashir and Miriam led the women in Az Yashir. That is what encapsulates This whole Yitziat Mitzrayim and all of its first stage, second stage, all the lesson that we were meant to learn is encapsulated in Sus v'rochvo, the horse and its rider. Not thrown off the horse. You make your decisions. You live with that. You create that world, but it's going to be all incorporated into the will of Hashem. Just one last point, a beautiful point that I think I've shared before, but a beautiful point. Let's take verse 20 again. Vatikach Miriam HaNeviah. Miriam the prophetess. Achot Aaron, the sister of Aaron, took the drum in her hand, and she went out to all the women, and she led them. What seems very strange over here? Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the drum. Right? The sister of Aaron. Right? Why don't we say Miriam the prophetess, the third cousin, twice removed from... I mean, if we're going to connect her to anybody here, who are we connecting her to? To Moshe.
Or both.
Or both. Right? But if... Right? I would even argue against both, right? This was Moshe's act. This was Moshe's day. This was Moshe led them out of Egypt. Incredible. Moshe split the sea. Moshe led them in song. Who's going to lead the women in song? Miriam, the prophetess, Moshe's sister. So Rashi, sorry?
I was going to ask what it has to do with Aaron's most notable attribute, which is chesed. And this, even though there's all this destruction of the innocent horses with the rider, there's still this element of chesed that's being celebrated, and God's chesed and taking us out, and that's my only question.
Interesting. So we'll say the focus is on the chesed. Now Rashi says something interesting. Rashi asks, right? Doesn't he ask it? Okay. Well, Rashi, right? Is it Achos? Is it the sister of Aaron, not the sister of Moshe? Well, interesting. Miriam the Neviah, Miriam the prophetess. So Rashi says, oh, that explains it. When was she a prophetess? Before Moshe was born. She was a prophetess when she was the sister of Aaron. Oh, so that's why it says Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, to teach us that she was a prophetess when? Before Moshe was born, when she was only the sister of Aaron, when she was not yet the sister of Moshe. Wonderful. Why is now the time to teach that to us? So let's go back a little bit.
Or it says, Rabbi, also that Miriam was equal to Aaron, because Moshe was the father of all prophets. It also says here.
So therefore, so we say sister of Aaron because... Okay. Let's go back. Let's go back to page 296. Right? We did this a couple of weeks ago. A man went from the house of Levi and took a daughter of Levi. Right? We mentioned, when we learned that seems to be a marriage. Right? But there was already a sister in the picture. Right? Right? So we explained that these parents had been married and they had separated. Why are they separated? Because who want to bring children into the world if they're going to be destroyed by the Egyptians? The daughter said to them, "You're worse than Pharaoh. He decreed against the boys. Your separation is affecting both the boys and the girls." And she had a prophecy. What was her prophecy? You're going to give birth to a child who will be the Redeemer of Israel. That was the prophecy that she had when she was the sister of Aaron. You will give birth to the Redeemer of Israel. Now she couldn't hide him any longer. Verse 3, put him in a wicker basket. Verse 4, her sister stationed herself at a distance to know what would be done with him. Ma yaseh lo. The Gemara says she wanted to know what will be with her prophecy. Right? She had a prophecy that you get remarried, you'll have a child who will be the Redeemer of Israel, and now this infant is being placed in a basket, sent out into the river. She wanted to know what would be with her prophecy. Paro's daughter went to bathe by the river, and the maidens walked alongside it. She saw the basket among the reeds. Betoch hasuf, amongst the reeds. And she sent her maidservant, and she took it. Right? So at that point, she's wondering what's going to be with her prophecy. And all along, she's wondering what's going to be with her prophecy. And Moshe disappears. And Moshe's brought up in the palace. Then Moshe defends the Jew and kills the Mitzri, and Moshe needs to run. And she wonders what's going to be with her prophecy. And then he comes back and things get worse. And then a plague after plague after plague after plague. And finally, B'shalach Paro. Paro sends them out. And then the Mitzrim come out against chasing after us. And they trap us. And she's wondering what's going to be with her prophecy. And then the sea splits and we go through. And the Mitzrim follow. And then we see all the Mitzrim. And then it's over. And then Moshe leads the men. Who now leads the women? Again, by the sea of reeds. It went from those few reeds that they put Moshe into. Now they've crossed the Yam Suf. So now what happens? Miriam, the prophetess. The prophetess? Yes, when was she a prophetess? Achot Aaron, when she was a sister of Aaron. What was her prophecy? That there would be born the Redeemer of Israel. Now what happens? Now she sees her prophecy has been completely fulfilled. Now she's referred to as a prophetess. Now we see the fulfillment. The sister of Aaron, that was the prophecy when she was sister of Aaron. Now is the time to tell us. What does she do? We have other songs in the Torah. We don't have the men's section and the women's section for the songs. We have Hazinu. There's not Moshe leading the men and Miriam leading the women. Why over here do we have Miriam leading the women? Because this is Miriam's song. This is Miriam's prophecy. This is Miriam's insight that she saw that has reached fruition. Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, the prophecy that she had when she was the sister of Aaron about the Redeemer of Israel has come about. She erupts into song and leads the women. That's how the pasuk in its simply Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, is giving us the full impact of this moment for Miriam and for Bnei Yisroel. And we just in the Navi class last night we finished Chavakuk, and the third chapter of Chavakuk is talking about the ultimate geula, the ultimate redemption that will come, and the difficulties that will be there before that. And he speaks about how the Shamayim hides over Hashem's glory, how the nature, all that goes on in the nature, right, covers over. Let me get the exact wording. It's such a beautiful term. Kisa Shamayim Hodo. The heavens, right, nature covers over, obfuscates, Hodo, his glory, Utihilato Mala Aretz. But his praise actually fills the land. So the Shamayim, the heavens, nature covers over, cloaks his glory, but his praise, his praises is what fills the earth. And what Chavakuk talks about is that when we recognize how it's God's intervention, both hidden and revealed, that has taken us to where we are, that is when the ultimate geula comes, which sounds familiar, doesn't it? That's what we're saying over here. The vestige of Mitzrayim that we needed to rid ourselves then, and that we need to rid ourselves of now, is this understanding of lichana bifanav, to recognize that it's Hashem's world that we are living in. The zekeli va'anveh. Okay, we'll call it over here.
Thank you.
Yes.
So Miriam was a prophetess. She knew that something great will happen in the future, but she didn't know what. God knows something, knows
Yes.
what will
I
happen.
would say that,
She's limited.
the prophecy was that he would be the Moshiach of Yisroel. Exactly how it's going to come about.
That's right.
Yeah,
She had
that's-
certain limitations.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful.
I would
really
agree with
beautiful.
that. I would
Thank
agree
you.
with that.
I will come to Nadi class. That's a reminder.
I had
That was a shameless plug. I'm sorry,
I just
Dave.
want to say that the Ein Od Milvado pasuk or statement is on thousands of cars in New York. It's on my car. It's been handed out because we need it today also.
Yeah.
We need to remember.
Yeah.
On so many cars in the back, pasted.
To see that.
It's a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Ein Od Milvado in Hebrew.
In Hebrew.
In Hebrew.
Nice.
And it's there for, and as you drive along and you see somebody else who's thinking the same way,
Yeah.
it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, it says Ashir al Hashem, and then she says Shiru al Hashem. Like there's slight difference in that pasuk. And I was thinking, Moshe had to teach people, to tell them, I'm going to tell you about this. She didn't have to, because the women, with all due respect to the women, have a sense
Kirtzono.
of spirituality. So for us already, it was, let's go.
Let's do it. Beautiful.
And I think for him, maybe
Beautiful.
there was this concept of, I'm going to have to teach you about it. I'm going to sing it,
Yeah.
and you guys are going to learn it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
She's a man and a woman.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It just hit me as you were explaining. Thank
Beautiful.
you for your
Beautiful.
class.
That's a beautiful.
Exceptional today.
Beautiful.
Exceptional.
That's Ashir al Hashem and Shir al Hashem. I like that.
Okay.
I like that. Nice.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Beautiful, Debbie.
Thank you
Hit me
very
very
much.
hard. It's not-
Got that.